David earns $122,000 a year as a software developer in San Francisco. 6 years of experience, a solid job, a respectable company, a career path that, on paper, looks successful by almost any standard. Compared to most people his age, David appears to be doing very well. But his one-bedroom apartment costs $3,400 a month. And it is not even a nice apartment. It is small, outdated, and located in a building that has barely changed since the late 1980s. There is no dedicated parking. To avoid tickets, David has to remember to move his car every 72 hours. This is the reality that comes with making it in one of America's most expensive cities. That rent alone adds up to $40,800 a year. After federal taxes, California state taxes, and mandatory payroll deductions, David's take-home pay from his $122,000 salary is roughly $84,000. Almost half of that disappears immediately into rent before he buys a single grocery, pays for transportation, or spends $1 on anything resembling a life. Then come the everyday costs: groceries, which are expensive in San Francisco, transportation, a few dinners out, streaming subscriptions, basic services, the quiet, unavoidable expenses of existing in a major coastal city. When everything is accounted for, David manages to save around $400 a month, some months less, some months nothing at all. $400 a month on a six-figure salary. After 6 years of full-time work, at 31 years old, David's entire net worth consists of about $23,000 in retirement savings and a used Honda Civic. No property, no meaningful investments outside retirement accounts, no sense of financial momentum. But the most damaging part is not the balance sheet, it is the exhaustion, the creeping suspicion that no amount of effort will ever be enough. That every raise, every promotion, every increase in compensation simply vanishes into the rising cost of living. David is starting to realize that the problem may not be his ambition, his discipline, or his work ethic. The problem may be where he lives, and that realization changes everything. Now here is where the story takes a turn. David's former college roommate, Ryan, made a very different decision 3 years ago. Ryan accepted a fully remote job and moved out of the expensive coastal cities. He relocated to Boise, Idaho. Ryan earns $94,000 a year, nearly $30,000 less than David. On paper, Ryan looks like the one who fell behind. But Ryan's rent is $1,400 a month for a two-bedroom apartment. It includes in-unit laundry and a dedicated parking spot. His state income taxes are significantly lower. Groceries cost less, transportation costs less, services cost less, almost everything costs less. The result is dramatic. Ryan saves about $1,800 a month, not because he is more disciplined, not because he invests better, not because he works harder, he simply lives somewhere cheaper. At this point in his life, Ryan has approximately $130,000 in retirement accounts. He has already saved enough to put a down payment on a house. His financial trajectory feels calm, controlled, and forward-moving. David, meanwhile, makes more money but feels stuck. This is not a paradox. It is not bad luck. It is not a mystery. David earns more, but Ryan is getting rich. And that difference has nothing to do with intelligence, ambition, or effort. It comes down to one overlooked variable that quietly shapes everything else: geography. Where you live can matter more than how much you earn, and if you're living in a high-cost city while convincing yourself that the opportunities, the culture, or the network make it worth it, you may be watching your financial future drain away one rent payment at a time. This is not a rare edge case. It is happening to millions of people who are doing everything right and still falling behind. And that brings us to the real problem. Here is the truth that almost nobody tells you about salary. A dollar is not a dollar. The number on your paycheck does not represent the same reality everywhere.
A $100,000 income can mean financial stress in one city and financial freedom in another. And the difference is not small. It is not 10%. It is not 20%. In many cases, it's 2, 3, even 400%. Your income only has meaning in relation to where you spend it. To understand this, consider the cost of living data compiled by the Council for Community and Economic Research. San Francisco's cost of living is roughly 80% higher than the national average. New York City is in a similar range. Los Angeles sits around 50% above average. Now compare that to cities like Oklahoma City, Memphis, Indianapolis, or Kansas City, where the cost of living is 10 to 15% below the national average. Or look internationally, in places like Portugal, Mexico, Thailand, or Colombia, overall living costs can be 50 to 70% lower than the U.S. average. These are not subtle differences, they are life-altering. Let's translate this into real money. Imagine a household earning $100,000 after taxes. In San Francisco, with an 80% higher cost of living, that $100,000 buys the same lifestyle that roughly $55,000 would buy in an average American city. Nearly half of your purchasing power disappears without you spending a single dollar irresponsibly. Now flip the situation. In a city that is 20% below the national average, that same $100,000 buys what $125,000 would buy elsewhere. Your effective wealth increases by 25% without earning one additional dollar, without working longer hours, and without taking any extra risk. This is the hidden math of geography. Two people can have the same job, the same income, and the same work ethic. One struggles, the other builds wealth, not because one is smarter or more disciplined, but because one's dollars go further every single day. Once you understand this, income stops being a fixed number, it becomes a multiplier, and geography determines whether that multiplier is working for you or against you. And this is only the beginning of the damage, because when differences like this persist over time, they don't remain linear. They compound. The real danger of the geography trap is not what it costs you today, it is what it costs you over time. Small monthly differences feel harmless. $400 versus $1,800 does not feel like a life-altering gap when viewed in isolation. But wealth is not built in snapshots, it is built through compounding, and compounding turns small differences into massive outcomes. David saves about $400 a month in San Francisco. Ryan saves about $1,800 a month in Boise. Both invest their savings in broad market index funds, earning an average annual return of 8%. They don't speculate, they don't take outsized risks, they simply invest consistently. After 20 years, David ends up with approximately $236,000. Ryan ends up with $1.06 million. The difference is more than $800,000. And here is the part that is hardest to accept. Ryan did not make more money. He did not work harder. He did not pick better investments. He did not get lucky. He simply lived somewhere cheaper. That is the entire difference. Living in an expensive city is not just a higher monthly bill, it is a future wealth tax. In David's case, his zip code is quietly costing him about $40,000 per year in future net worth. Every year he stays, that number grows. This is why the geography trap is so difficult to escape once you're inside it. The longer you stay, the more invisible wealth you give up. And because you never see the money you didn't get to keep, it doesn't feel like a loss. But it is. And it raises a deeper question. If the financial cost is this extreme, why do so many ambitious people stay in the most expensive cities in the world? The answer lies in what those cities promise. What makes the geography trap so powerful is not just the math, it is the story. The most expensive cities in the world are also the cities that feel the most necessary. San Francisco has the tech jobs, New York has finance, Los Angeles has entertainment. These places have spent decades convincing ambitious people that success requires physical proximity. You're told that this is where the opportunities are, where the smartest people gather, where careers are made. And in certain careers, at certain stages of life, this belief is not entirely wrong. If you're 24 years old trying to break into venture capital, being in San Francisco for a few years may genuinely matter. If you're building a career on Wall Street, Manhattan is hard to avoid early on because in-person networking effects are real. Being physically present can accelerate learning, visibility, and opportunity. But here's the part most people miss. The career premium of expensive cities has been shrinking for years, and during the pandemic, it collapsed almost overnight. What used to be a requirement has quietly become an assumption, and many people are still paying for an assumption